Yo, hello kittens. In this video we're going to be doing a tier list for Wriothesley's best weapons. As always, we're just going to be ranking all of the catalysts in the game and we're going to see if they work on Wriothesley and how well they do and stuff like that. Obviously, first of all, we're going to see what he's going to need on a weapon first so we can rank them according to this. Alright, so very quickly, Wriothesley is just going to be like using his normal attacks and charge attacks to do damage. That's pretty much his main source of damage, and they're going to be cryos. So any weapons that are going to give you like normal attacks damage, charge attacks damage, or elemental damage are going to be pretty good. They're going to be like buffing his damage directly. He's a normal DPS, so any weapons that are going to give you like crit damage, you know, stuff like that are going to be pretty good too. Attack is also going to be pretty good. And then finally, depending on the team, elemental mastery might be a little good, but it's definitely not what you'd want to aim for. So yeah, that's pretty much it for his weapons. Really, it's just normal DPS weapons, plus if they give you like normal attacks damage bonus, that's even better. With that being said, let's rank the weapons for Wriothesley. Alright, so I have the magic guide. These are the 3-star weapons. We're just gonna skim through them. So it's D tier, Thrill and Tales, HP is D tier, Otherworldly Story, Energy Recharge, D tier 2, Emerald Orb, D tier, Twin Nephrite, it's gonna give you a little bit of crit rate, but still a very low base attack, and then you know, it's just some attack from the passive, but it's still not really super good, so I'd put that as C tier. And then finally, Ember Bed for the 3 stars is also going D tier. So yeah, I wouldn't really recommend using any 3-star weapons on him. Now for the 4-star weapons, we have the Favonius. Its energy recharge is definitely not the weapon for him. Kind of a high base stack, especially compared to 3-star weapons, but it's definitely still not usable, so I'll put that C tier. We have the Widset, average base stack for a 4-star weapon, then crit damage as a substat, that's pretty good. And then the passive is that when you enter the field, you're gonna get a random buff. It's either attack or elemental damage bonus, both of them are pretty good. And then finally, our elemental mastery, that's not really super good, but again, it's usable depending on the team. So the passive is kind of random and it's not really that consistent. It also has like only third of the uptime, so that's not really good. But generally speaking, for the stats, I'd say it's a decent 4-star weapon, so I'd put it at like higher B tier. It's definitely one of the, you know, top like 5 or 3 4-star weapons for him. Sacrificial, pretty much the same thing as the Favonius, I'd put that just C tier. Royal Grimoire, it's a high base attack and an attack, and then the passive is just the Royal passive, which is not really that good. I'd still play at like B tier, to be honest, you know, the high base attack and an attack, but it's definitely still not really like super good. We have the Solar Pearl, average base attack and then crit rate as a substat, which is super good, as I said. And then the passive is that it's going to increase your elemental skill and elemental burst damage. You don't really care about that as much, but it's also going to increase your normal attacks damage, which is super good on Wriothesley. It's a pretty decent 4-star weapon too. You know, average base attack, that's not really super good, and then a small crit rate substat, and then you're also going to get your normal attacks damage buffed, so it's pretty decent. It's definitely nothing really special. All of the like stats and buffs are kind of small, but it's definitely still a decent weapon. I'll put that like B tier 2, higher B tier, just behind the Widset. Broad-type Amber, just HP, is going C tier. Same thing with the Mop and Mare. Blackcliff, we're gonna have average base attack and then crit damage as a substat, and then the Blackcliff passive is that when you beat an enemy, your attack is gonna be increased. Again, when the full stacks are active, it's definitely gonna be a super good weapon, but this is not always the case, so it's a very inconsistent weapon. But either way, I'll just still put that like B tier. It's kind of usable just for the, you know, crit rate and stuff like that if you don't have any other weapons, but generally speaking, I wouldn't really recommend because it's very inconsistent. We have the Eye of Perception, low base attack and then attack as a substat. The passive is just extra damage. I wouldn't really say it's super good. I'll put it like higher C tier. Wine Song, energy recharge, and then the passive is just going to decrease your stamina consumption, and it's also going to increase your attack. I wouldn't really say it's still, you know, it's still not really that good, so I'll put that C tier too. Frostbearer, average base attack and then attack as a substat, and then just extra damage from the passive. Again, wouldn't really say it's super good. I'll put it like lower B tier. Dotoko Tails, very low base attack for a 4-star weapon, and then attack as a substat, and then the passive, it's going to increase your like charge attacks hits, which is pretty good. You're going to be using them quite a bit with Wriothesley, and then it's also going to increase your attack. If you got this weapon, especially if you like R5'd it, it's definitely usable on Wriothesley. Wouldn't really say it's super good, but it's definitely usable. So again, yeah, I'll put it like mid B tier. Action Ring, high base stack, but energy recharge as a substat, which is not really super good. The passive is also probably not that compatible with Wriothesley, so yeah, I'll put that like C tier. Oathsworn Eye, just high base stack and attack. The passive is completely useless, so C tier. Wandering Even Star, elemental mastery, and just the attack buff based around your elemental mastery, blah blah blah. It's definitely not the weapon for Wriothesley. Wriothesley, so C tier 2. C tier is kind of full this time. Most of the weapons are just not good for him. For fulfillment, without even reading, just same thing. C tier, just energy recharge, and then it's gonna decrease your attack, which is a big no. Sacrificial Jade, low base stack and then crit rate as a substat, which is, you know, I would say acceptable. The passive though is just bad. It's just gonna increase your HP and elemental mastery. Also, it requires you to not be on the field, which is just, so it's not even gonna work. But yeah, just for the crit rate, I put at like very low B tier. It's definitely not a good weapon. But yeah, for the crit, it's mid, I would say. A low less than mid, maybe. Flow and Purity, high base stack and then attack as a substat. The passive is just gonna increase your elemental damage bonus, which is very, very good on Wriothesley, as I said before. I honestly think that's probably his best 4-star weapon, I would think, especially because it's way more consistent than like the Witsit, and it's just better than the Solar Pearl, and also because it's a craftable weapon, so I would assume a lot of people can R5 it, even if you're like free to play. And with refinements, it's gonna get much better. You know, high base stack and then attack, and it's gonna increase your elemental damage bonus, which is super good. Obviously, you're just gonna need a healer, but that's doable with Wriothesley. There are a lot of teams where he can use a healer. So if you're free to play, I'd say just use this weapon on him, to be honest. It's the best 4-star weapon. It's also free to play. If you get refinements, it's gonna get much better. So yeah, honestly, I'll put it like higher B tier. With refinements with like R5, it might get to like higher A tier or lower A tier, sorry. So yeah, I'll just put it at lower A tier, to be honest. I think it's worth it. It's the best 4-star weapon. It's definitely pretty usable, and I think it's even comparable to like other 5-star weapons. So yeah, I'll put it at lower A tier. We have Ballad of the Boundless Blue, a high base stack but energy recharge substat. It's gonna increase your normal attacks damage bonus, which is pretty good, and it's also gonna increase your charge attacks, which is also super good. The only thing that ruined it is the energy recharge substat. It's not really necessary on Wriothesley. If you got something like attack or crit, it's definitely gonna be a super good weapon, but like that, it's kind of mid. It's usable, but it's mid. So yeah, let's just put that like B tier. I think Flow and Purity is just gonna be better, so use it. I don't see a reason why you would use the Ballad of the Boundless Blue, but yeah, if you want to use it, it's a B tier weapon. And now for the 5-star weapons, we have the Skyward Atlas, super high base stack, attack as a substat, and then elemental damage bonus from the passive, and then some extra damage. Just a pretty decent combination, you know, no crit and stuff like that, but it's still super good. I would put it at S tier, probably lower S tier. A lot of weapons are gonna be better than it, but it's definitely still a top weapon for Wriothesley. We have Lost Prayers, kind of average base stack for a 5-star, and then crit rate as a substat. It's gonna increase your movement speed by 10%, and then when you're in battle, like on the field, you're gonna gain elemental damage bonus every 4 seconds with 4 stack until the character leaves or falls from combat. It's a pretty good weapon when you like account for all the buffs, but I'm not really sure how it's gonna work with like Wriothesley's rotations, because you're gonna have to leave the field and then you're gonna restart the stacks. So a lot of times you're not gonna have you know, any buffs from the passive, which is not really super good. When you have all the buffs, it's definitely a super good weapon, but with like no buffs, it's kind of rough. So I would say it's kind of inconsistent for Wriothesley. Still a good weapon just for the stats and stuff like that, but I wouldn't really say it's an S tier weapon because it's kind of inconsistent. So yeah, I put it at like very high A tier, but just for the inconsistency, it's kind of long, so it wouldn't really be an S tier weapon, at least for me. I don't see it as an S tier weapon. If you can figure out like some perfect rotations and stuff like that, maybe, but generally speaking, as a weapon for Wriothesley, I'd say it's an A tier weapon. We have Memory of Dust, average base stack, attack as a substat, and then when you have a shield, your attack is just going to be increased, so it's pretty much just attack, but it's going to give you a lot of it, so it's a pretty decent weapon, especially if you have a shielder on. If you're using this weapon, you probably should, and with Wriothesley, you might be using like Jean Lee or something like that. So yeah, again, it's a decent weapon. I wouldn't really think it's super good too. It's just attack, but you know, it's pretty decent and usable, so I put it at A tier. We have the Jadefall. It's just HP and then average base stat for a 5-star weapon. For the passive, it's just gonna give you energy and some elemental damage bonus. The elemental damage bonus is pretty low too. I'm not even sure if Wriothesley can get like the full elemental damage bonus, but yeah, it's definitely not a good weapon for Wriothesley. Just for the high base stack and stuff like that, put it at B tier because it's still usable, but generally it's definitely not the weapon. We have the Donuts, average base stack, and then HP as a substat, which is bad, and then it's gonna increase your normal attacks damage from your max HP, but Wriothesley is probably not gonna have like that much max HP, so it's not really super good. Also, the you know, the HP substat is definitely not good, so yeah, I wouldn't really say it's a good weapon on Wriothesley. It's pretty much the same thing as the Jadefall. I just throw it at B tier just for the high base stack and the small normal attack increase. Other than that, it's definitely not good, so yeah, it's B tier. We have Kagura's Verity, average base stack and then crit damage as a substat, which is super good. The passive is just gonna increase your elemental skill damage damage bonus. And when you have 3 stacks, your elemental damage bonus can be increased, which is good for Wriothesley. But the thing is, you're not going to get that with Wriothesley. You're not going to get 3 stacks. This is just impossible. So the passive is pretty much just elemental skill damage bonus, which is not good. You're not really going to need that as much with Wriothesley. So yeah, it's just a high base stack or average for a 5-star weapon, and then a huge crit damage substat, which is good. But other than that, there's not really much going on. So I'd put that like lower A tier. 1000 Floating Dreams, elemental mastery, and then a long passive. The passive can give you elemental damage bonus, but it's still not really super good in my opinion. But you know, elemental mastery, some elemental damage bonus, it's decent. So for a 5-star weapon, I'd put it at A tier, I would say. Just like right in the middle of A tier. We have Wriothesley's Remembrance, super high base stack, and then crit damage as a substat. And then the passive is just gonna buff your normal attacks damage bonus, the speed, and also a huge damage bonus. So it's definitely pretty good. You know, it's everything. You know, it's gonna give you crit damage, a super high base stack, and then a lot of normal attacks damage bonus. So yeah, it's definitely an S tier weapon. I would say it's probably like top 2 after his signature. So yeah, it's going S tier. We have Cash Flow. This is his signature weapon. Also a super high base stack, and then crit rate as a substat. It's gonna increase your attack, and also when your HP changes, which is, you know, you can have with Wriothesley, it's gonna increase your normal attacks damage and also your charge attacks damage. So Wriothesley's Remembrance only increases your normal attacks damage. His signature is gonna increase both your charge and normal attacks. And then we have the full stacks. Your attack speed is gonna be increased, which is also pretty good. So it's definitely the best weapon for him. So yeah, it's definitely going to the top of S tier. But yeah, with that, those are the weapons for Wriothesley. As you guys can see, a lot of weapons doesn't really work on him, but also he has a couple of free to play options which everyone can get, like the Flow and Purity, for example. Those can save him for free to play players. Other than that, a lot of 5-stars can work on him, so if you have any of them, you're good. And if you have his top weapons, those are obviously the best option. Generally speaking, I would say he's kind of free to play friendly. So yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please consider like, subscribe to the channel, and see y'all in the next video. Peace.